Thank you, Senator Council. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you allowing me to be heard on this
Yes, sir.
topic, especially before crossover day. I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
your consideration. I was here 2 years ago in front of your committee with an almost identical bill that Representative Welch co-sponsored here in the House. We had corresponding resolutions and got out of your committee but never got on the floor of the House. And then again last year, we were here with this bill and it did pass your committee and got through your Rules Committee but didn't get called for a vote on the last day. So I'm not going to give the 30-minute presentation since I feel like this committee is aware of the provisions of this resolution and there has been a good bit more public discussion of the Article 5 process in the last 2-year period that we've been dealing with this topic. So I think most people are much more educated on this constitutional provision than once were. So I won't start this off as a political science 101 course. I'll jump right ahead and just tell you what we're trying to accomplish. This is an application to be submitted to the United States Congress calling for an Article 5 convention. That is sometimes referred to as a convention of the states, or more commonly an amendment convention, for the limited purpose of considering a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution. Article 5 provides two mechanisms for amending the Constitution. One is if an amendment is proposed by the Congress, which requires a 2/3 vote of each chamber, and then submission to the states for ratification by 3/4 of the states. That has not worked in this case. The United States Congress had this vote 2 or 3 years ago and it did not pass, the balanced budget amendment. So that door has been closed to us. There is not a 2/3 majority in Congress that is willing to impose fiscal constraints on themselves. I think we're fortunate here in Georgia that we do have a constitution that requires us to balance our budget, and we have lived within our means, even through this great recession of the last several years that's been very painful. But it's a responsible way to govern. 49 of the states have such constitutional or statutory provisions, and all live within their means. The alternative provision, where Congress will not take action and propose this type of amendment, is that 2/3 of the states may petition Congress and apply for such a convention to be held. That requires 34 states to do so. Upon receipt of applications from 34 states, Congress must call a convention of the states for the purpose of amending the Constitution. This asks for it to be on the limited subject matter of a balanced budget amendment, and it sets forth in this application that we want that to be at lines 18 and 19, in the absence of a national emergency, the total of all federal appropriations made by Congress for any fiscal year may not exceed the total of all estimated federal revenues for that year. It is very intentionally subject matter specific, but does not give the exact wording of the amendment. That would be agreed upon by the convention once it convenes and as it's appointed. You're going to see several groups here today. I would anticipate quite a few in support of this, as it is certainly gaining traction nationwide. 20 states have now passed identical or similar single subject matter resolutions such as this for a balanced budget amendment, so we're well over half the way there. There are 5 or 6 other states actively considering this exact amendment at this time, so it looks like we're gaining momentum to get into the 34 states. A couple of years ago, I had opposition, specifically from the, I guess it's called the Atlanta Tea Party Patriots, Julianne Thompson, Debbie Dooley's group. I had some Tea Party organizations in the state in favor, some against. You will see that the John Birch Society is opposed. I think the Eagle Forum is opposed. Those that are opposed to this have generally been people that had fears of a runaway convention, that the convention might consider other subject matters other than the one we call for here. Those people have changed their minds, or some of those people have changed their minds over the last couple of years. Debbie Dooley and Julianne Thompson's group now support this. The Georgia Tea Party Patriots support this. I know the Walton County Tea Party Patriots support it because that's in my district. And there's Mark Levine has written a book called The Liberty Amendments, where he is in support of this process. I think as the opponents have become more educated and realized that the convention itself does not have the power to pass an amendment to the United States Constitution, that the opposition sort of melts. Once the realization sets in that 3/4 of the states would have to ratify any amendment proposed by the convention, then that alleviates a lot of fears of any runaway convention. We went a step further last year and had what's referred to as a Delegate Limitation Act. It's Senate Bill 206, which has passed your Interstate Cooperation Committee. I think that's what you call it here, Matt Dollar's committee, and is in Rules Committee now. That sets forth the mechanism for selecting delegates from the state of Georgia, and also requires them to have an oath of office that they will confine their deliberations to whatever our application for convention asks for. And in this case, it would be only a balanced budget amendment. And also to be limited by whatever legislative instructions the legislature may give to our delegates as they go to the convention. That allows us to recall any delegate that were to veer away or consider any subject matters other than a balanced budget amendment. It also makes it a crime, a violation of their oath of office, which is a felony offense if they were to do that. Once people realize that we do have control over our delegates, that they will not be considering amendments for other subject matters, then I think that further dissolves any of these fears of some type of runaway convention. You know, some people have said that desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think that most all of us would agree that our federal fiscal condition is in the worst shape as it's ever been in the history of this country, and it is certainly in desperate shape. We're over $17 trillion now in federal debt that's sort of on the books, and there's another $79 trillion of unfunded liabilities that are out there for us, and it's certainly going to be quite a burden to impose on future generations if we do not get this under control. And so I would strongly urge consideration from this committee to pass this application out of committee so that it might be considered by the House. It passed the Senate last year along with the Delegate Limitation Act with bipartisan support. And I would mention that this resolution, it is replacing one that Georgia first passed in 1976 when we were almost 100% Democratic. This is not a partisan type issue. That was rescinded back in 2004 when we had a number of these applications on varying topics that we kind of had to clean up any bills, we took off the books laws that were sort of void or lingering or whatever, no longer current. And I think back in 2004, the legislature rescinded all pending resolutions instead of just letting them stay out there indefinitely. I don't think that was a statement as to the usefulness of the application or the validity of it, but I think it was more of let's clean up some of the unused laws that are on the books at the time. So I think this is a issue that's supported by both Democrats and Republicans. Anybody concerned about the fiscal security of this country, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Any questions of the presenter? We do. Yes, sir. Judge?
Yes, Senator, you spoke concerning having our delegates selected as well as under oath. But what happens if, let's say, we have more than 34 states? How can we control their delegates?
Couldn't control those delegates,
That's-
what they might vote or what they might oppose.
Well, then
And
couldn't
you have to
you,
have 3/4 ratify anything
Right.
that could come out of that convention.
right, well, couldn't you then have amendments and them, as I use the term because it's been used, a runaway convention, then we could control ours, but we couldn't control the others.
That is true.
Thank you.
Mr. Wells?
Senator Cowser, I wanted to thank you again for bringing this resolution and also working diligently on the delegate control or delegate authorization bill 206, Senate Bill 206. A question that doesn't pertain to the resolution, which I'm supportive of, but on your delegate limitation bill, I know that I think it's already moved into rules, but out of curiosity, would you be willing to entertain some amendments to how the delegates are chosen?
Certainly. And I will tell the committee how that was decided was to give the governor 2 appointments, the lieutenant governor 2 appointments, and the speaker 2 appointments. Then those 6 delegates would select among themselves a 7th delegate, so it'd be an unequal number.
I believe you have it as the president of the Senate.
Same difference. Our president is lieutenant
Yeah.
governor. And, you know, Judge, to your question earlier,
Yes.
this Delegate Limitation Act, we're not the Lone Ranger with that. Most of these states already have that in place as well. So we go into any convention with a certain assurance that the majority of these states also have their delegates limited to that single subject matter. So it's not just the Wild West like I made that sound that we can't control. But technically, you know, we can't control how other states do, but from a practical standpoint, they have the same limitations in place.
Thank you.
All right. Does the Constitution call for the number of delegates?
Does not.
And so how is that going to be determined?
Different states can do it different ways. The universal principle in what's imposed in our Delegate Limitation Act in this is that each state will have 1 vote. Now, how they go about selecting the numbers really should not be relevant to us as long as each state gets 1 vote on any proposal.
So our 7, assume we have 7 delegates, there would be a majority to decide what would be the vote.
That's correct.
Okay. Anything further from the presenter? I appreciate your efforts on this. I'm going to